BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Lyric Corner, and welcome also to my wrap-up for March. It is April 1st, also known as April Fool's Day, although I never do any April Fool's Day's jokes, because when I'm purposely trying to pull a prank or something, I would be that person who would be giggling the whole time and trying to, keep quiet, but I just can't help it. That would be me. Like, I remember one time I was trying to pull a prank on, not a prank, but surprise my grandfather when we were visiting, and I'm in the background snickering the whole time. My sister's like, shh. The whole time. And it worked out, and we still kind of surprised them, but anyway. So now I just realized that one of the books that I read, it's a book I didn't like. I ended up giving, I think, 2 stars. So I put in the donation pile, and then I forgot that I hadn't filmed my wrap-up. And today I went to the roast office, and I wanted to bring some books, so I just grabbed a handful of books from that pile. And one of the books was the book that I read this month. And so I don't have it to show you, and I don't know how to do that whole showing the image on the screen thing. So I guess there's gotta be a way to do it, but someone would have to go over it with me and show me how to do it. And for me, and I don't know if my parents would figure it out. I mean, they're not like totally it's not like they don't know how to use computers, because they're not like from the 1950s or anything. They're from the 70s and 80s. But there are some things that they don't know. And being even though I'm a 90s kid, I grew up with the era when the internet became a thing and all that, I still don't know this kind of stuff. So one day I will figure it out, so that now I can have, don't have to worry about having books physically to show you if I ended up not loving the book and want to, donate it. Okay, so anyway. So the first book I read this month was actually a book I read mostly in February, and like the last week of February, and then I carried it into the first day of March, and that is Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. And this is a book I read in, I think it was middle school was the first time I read it, because my best friend at the time was a big fan, and during middle school years, I was all about copying at least 2 of my friends, basically doing everything that they did. So because she loved Interview with a Vampire and vampires, I was getting into vampires and everything, although I think I still lean more towards witches, because that was also my Charmed era. And at that time, I liked the book, but I don't think I loved it, and I don't think I appreciated it. I mean, like, I barely remember it. Granted, that was middle school, and I'm 34, going on 35, and in a month. So, it's not entirely a surprise, but if a book would stand out to me at the time I read it, then I'm probably going to remember at least a little bit, and I don't remember a lot of this book. I remember some because, of course, movies, I am better at remembering movies than books because of the visual representation and seeing actors playing the characters. That's what I'm better at remembering. As much as avid of a reader as I am, movies usually make more of an impression on my memory than a book does. I mean, I can remember some things about books, but like, a lot of times it's, like, feelings, and then there's some things that if it's really stood out to me and it's funny or something, or sad, then, yeah, I might remember it. But anyway, so now, I did do a review on this, so I'm not going to say a lot, but I definitely enjoy it a lot more now than I did back then, and Terry, I'm sure, was excited to hear that I had read this book, and I told her, check out my review, and I didn't think that she would spoil things for me, but she did spoil a little bit. Not that, at the end of the day, though, I was just teasing her. It doesn't really bother me that much if she spoiled things for me. And it wasn't anything big, it was character stuff, and for me, character stuff isn't, like, a huge spoiler. Like, plot stuff, maybe a huge spoiler, or, like, something about the character development that affects the plot could potentially be a spoiler. But a lot of times, like way back when I was watching Once Upon a Time, I would look for the spoilers. So, and now and in fact, I won't, once I've gotten into a book, sometimes I will actually read the last page. Not the whole thing, but read a couple sentences of the last page. I mean, if it's a short paragraph, I might read the whole paragraph. But, which for some people might find that weird and be like, why would you spoil yourself like that? But I don't know, I just, like, I guess sometimes it's also to ease myself a little bit to make sure everything, and find out how everything's going to turn out. But other times I can potentially ruin it. That's what happened with Mayfair Witches, the other novel by Anne Rice. Although now I've decided to come back to it because I did enjoy her writing and I liked the characters so far. And maybe now I think now I'm more into the story and everything and what's going to happen, what I think might happen. But anyway, so I'll just, this is a vampire story. I mean, duh, it's called Interview with a Vampire. Named Louis, and it's about how he became a vampire and his relationship with his sire. I'm just going to use that term because that's, what I know. And, I recently was watching Buffy, and his relationship with this girl, this little girl, Claudia, and it's such a dynamic story. There is a little romantic, erotic undertone, romantic and eroticness, and it's kind of explores the philosophy. I mean, the philosophy of what is a vampire and their role in life and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I'm trying not to spoil the review because I did film a review, and if I tell you what I said in the review, it's like either you watch this or you watch the review. So, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more this time around, and I'm ready to get back into, and I'm definitely getting back into Anne Rice. I mean, I would love to say that it was Terry that inspired that, but actually it was the late Jennifer Brooks who kind of inspired me to get back into Anne Rice. She was a big Anne Rice fan herself. She loved vampires, and, if I ever got a chance to meet her, I would love to have talked about this book with her. Sadly, like I said, she passed away back in, I think, January. And I hope she's resting in peace. But anyway, this was really good. And I hope you guys check out my review for this book if you are interested in this book. Or if you read it and you just want to see what other people think. Okay, so next I started this short story collection. This has 9 short stories in it. It's called In the Country by Mia Alvar. So she's the author of all 9 stories. It's not a collection of different authors. It's just hers. And now I have an interesting relationship with short stories. Like, I don't always love them. They sometimes disappoint me. I'm unsatisfied with them. But sometimes I think they're okay. Like, I thought Skeleton Crew was pretty good. By Stephen King. And I like some of the stories in there. And of course, people always say that when it comes to short story collections, there's bound to be ones that you're going to like and ones that you're not going to like. Because there's so much variety. And, and a lot of times authors will write different types of stories. So the themes of these stories is kind of, about the Philippines and about, Filipinos or Filipinas living either in the Philippines, or the U.S., and first, or there are sometimes, some Filipinos have lived in the city of Bahrain, which is a city in the Middle East. I hope I'm probably not saying that right. And I asked my dad about that, and he said that there were a lot of Filipinos that went to that city to get work. So these stories are just about their lives and them struggling with adapting to a new place and trying to stay true to their traditions and their beliefs and their culture. There's stories about the relationship between husbands and wives, mothers and sons, fathers and daughters, and friendships. And we have and just these relationships and how complicated they get. Like, you have a couple stories where there are, a parent that's, still loyal to the Philippines, but their child now lives in America. Or even, or even you have one of the stories has it where it's a husband and wife, and the husband misses the Philippines, but the wife is actually really happy where she is. I think they're living in Massachusetts, I believe, although that wasn't the first place they lived. And I do think the first story and the last story probably are the darkest in the collection, just in my opinion. And the last story is probably the longest story in the collection. And I don't know which ones are my favorite, though. Now, I think the reason why I was able to get through that, I was able to, I was motivated to read all the stories, and I was interested in all the stories, is because it's a contemporary. Yes, I mean, there's a couple stories that, take place in the 70s and 80s, but that's as far back, I think, as these stories go. I like the Miracle Worker was really interesting, and especially because it dealt with disabilities in a way. Like, you had this woman who's a teacher, and this takes place in Bahrain, and this Middle Eastern woman who has a daughter that is mentally, she's still a child and she's not developed. And the mom believes that she has the chance to be a prodigy if she learns the skills necessary to develop. In fact, she compares her daughter to Helen Keller and expects this teacher, to be like the teacher that Helen Keller had. But the teacher, looks at this girl and realizes she's not gonna, there's only so much she can teach this girl. And there's no guarantee, but she's scared to tell this mother that she is deluding herself, that her child is going to be some great genius or prodigy or something. And in the background, there's a plot where her friend who got her the job, works for the woman, and she and her Filipino friends are protesting to get, better wages. And our main character, the teacher, she feels guilty for not helping, so she lessens her efforts in helping the girl, just to do her part. Let's see. Shadow Families was interesting because I have been told that Filipino men have had other wives and other families, that's common. And that Shadow Families kind of dealt with that. You have a group of middle-aged women, and they form, they live together in their own house, in this one big house, and this one woman comes, who is a little bit, flirty and just a little too free-spirited, and that's putting it nicely. She's not very much into the Filipino traditions, and she has dyed hair, sexy clothes, she flirts with the husbands, and she ends up, and you find out that she's a child in a shadow family, which is the other family that a husband and / father might have, a Filipino man will have. And she ends up getting into trouble in the story, and these women are trying to help her, but she doesn't seem to want their help. Let's see. The Virgin of Mount Ramon is a sweet story, about this young wheelchair-bound kid. It's just him and his mom. They're part of the more wealthy side of the Philippines, and he is bullied because he's in a wheelchair. And I can't remember if he had no legs or just his legs didn't work. I can't remember. I would need to reread it for that part. And he ends up befriending this girl that shows up that gets bullied worse than he does because she is part of the poor class. I don't want to say the actual term because I don't know if I would imagine that would be offensive saying that word, but part of the poor class of people, and they become friends and form a bond. And when it's her time of the month, when he learns that, he offers to help her and take care of her. And I thought that was kind of a very bittersweet story. Let's see. Old Girl was kind of interesting. That's the one about the husband and wife. Where the husband, he didn't really, it was all about him, and he would get these whims to do these things, and she would be a very loyal wife, but it was at her expense. Some of the things that he would like he didn't seem to he was oblivious to her feelings and what she would experience and how she would feel about things, but she would stay loyal and supportive the whole time. And you basically see he gets this idea to be part of this marathon, the Boston Marathon, because this is the story where it takes place in Massachusetts. And, she knows he's not really going to put in the effort to practice and prepare for this marathon. He just likes the idea of doing it. So she just goes with the flow. And inside, she just shaking her head and being like, you're not, this is just a whim you have, and you're gonna get over it. Conjura Bida kind of like, Conjura Bida kind of reminded, felt like a familiar tale because, it was about this, not the whole thing, because it was about this young man who was living in the States, and he comes back to visit his mom and dad. His dad has cancer, and his mom has been taking care of his dad while also running this little store that they have. And he's kind of, has conflicted feelings because his dad was a jerk. He was a bully to his mom and abusive, and he was just mean. So his mom was he felt like his mom was just his dad's servant, his slave, and he doesn't like that. But he knows his mom loves his dad and just wants to be there for his mother. But, what's interesting is he offered to help her run the store while she takes care of his dad. But then he has been away for so long that there are things he doesn't remember. He doesn't know how to run the store as he's a doctor, so he doesn't know how it all works. And another conflict in the story is that he ends up bringing this patch type thing for his dad, but it's not legal in the Philippines. So he is worried about getting in trouble, but he wants to offer it to his mom to help. I think it takes away the pain or something. But so it's kind of a sad story. Like I said, it's one of the darker stories, I feel like. And the Legends of the White Lady, I was thinking that was going to focus on the whole the woman in white. There's an urban legend about this woman in white. And I think she kills men or something whenever, they help her. And everywhere they have that legend, a variation of that legend. And I think they have it in the Philippines too. And I thought it was good. It kind of is about that. It's not the main plot point of this story. But this story is about this. I think the woman is, I don't know if she's part Filipino. Maybe she's like me, where she's only 25% Filipino. But she has never been to the Philippines before. She's only been there once or twice with her friend, who I think is full Filipino, or at least half Filipino. but she is also a model, so she's going to the Philippines for a modeling gig, modeling jeans, and she ends up forming kind of a relationship with her co-model, her partner, her male model partner, because he was dismissing her and being like, oh, you're just another American, thinking they understand, and she is like, no, I do know a little bit about the Philippines, I've been here. And they just start hanging out. But them hanging out kind of affects her career in not such a great way. Esmeralda is about an affair. Like, this Filipino woman gets a job as a cleaner in an office, and she ends up having an affair with the man that her boss, the man who, while his wife is sick with cancer, and she's at the point where it's hard for him to take, he can't look at her, and it's hard for him because he can't have the kind of relationship that he used to have, so he makes the immoral decision of having an affair. So, and it puts our main character in a very uncomfortable position, because she finds herself attracted to this guy, but, his wife is sick. And, then you have a contract overseas. That was the one that I feel like could potentially be I could see that being a movie. They could expand that into a movie. Because you have this family of a mother and daughter. The daughter is the narrator, and you have her older brother, and he's trying to, I think it's a daughter. And the son is working for, this one ends up working for this rich guy in Bahrain, and becomes his assistant or driver or something. And he ends up being, the brother is known for falling in love real quickly and easily with every woman he has a relationship with. And one of the women he has in a relationship before he gets the job, he gets her pregnant. So she has to go live with her boy, his mom and our narrator, and she's kind of a bitch and a spoiled brat. So they don't really get along. And so meanwhile, our narrator is getting wants to be a writer, gets a job as she works for this special, in her college there's this special writing group, it's like a magazine or something, and she becomes part of it, and it inspires her to write stories, and she's inspired by her brother to write stories about his life, and his life seems pretty good. His new boss is great, but then he gets into some trouble. And then you also have In the Country. The last story involves a woman, I think she's a nurse, if I remember correctly, and she gets involved, and she is someone who, she's been fighting for equal rights for Filipino nurses, and she ends up, and she starts a protest, and then she ends up crossing paths with this reporter who wants to write about her protest, and they end up starting to date and fall in love and get married. But then their marriage ends up getting really messy and complicated, because they're both they get into a lot of trouble because they're fighting for social rights of for Filipinos, and it gets messy. And what's it called? Like with Old Girl, you see a time, you see it, a time jump, you get a timeline of both those stories, of the progress of what's going on in these characters' lives. So it feels so personal and relatable. It's just about their lives and what they go through in their struggles as Filipinos in just trying to adapt and staying loyal to their culture. But their country, the island, the Philippines is going in the 70s and 80s. I think in the 80s and 90s, it was going through a pretty rough period. And I don't think they gained independence until, I want to say, the 90s. But it was really good. I think, like I said, because it's contemporary stories, and it's also kind of a small part of who I am. I think I was more inclined to read all the stories. And it wasn't like trying to keep my attention like a lot of genre fiction will try to do. Like when it comes to whether it's horror or fantasy or sci-fi, I'm always looking for more for the story. Or like you have like Dickens, for instance, he was contemporary for his time because a lot of the stories, I think, most of his novels took place in that time period they were written. But his novels oftentimes are so long, so the short stories, Christmas stories, were like, okay, where's the rest of it? Like, it felt like incomplete. I do like some of Stephen King's stories, not all of them, though. Sometimes I still feel unsatisfied. And then with Kelly Link, at the time, I was just very confused. Oftentimes with her stories, I couldn't connect to one of them, and sometimes I didn't know what was going on. And I think magical realism is her thing. I would like to give Kelly Link another shot, but I already, I donated those a long time ago. Way before we even were considering moving, I think. But anyway, this is a really good collection, and I think this one it was another book that gives you a little bit of idea of, what was going on in the Philippines, and I definitely, if you're looking for a short story collection from a different culture that you don't hear a lot about, then, I would definitely recommend checking this out. In the Country by Mia Alvar. Okay, so the book. Now, I didn't read all those stories all at once. Like, before I got to that one, I read some other books in between. Like, after I read the first two stories in that collection, I also was reading The Red and the Black, and that's the one I don't have actually, there's two books I don't have a physical copy of, but The Red and the Black is the one that I would have I would have had a physical copy, but I forgot that I hadn't done my wrap up, so I took it to the roast office to be donated. But The Red and Black by Stundle is a story about this young man named Julian. He is preparing to go into the priesthood. He's the son of a carpenter, so he's a peasant. And this is around the time that after the Napoleonic Wars. And he, as a peasant, was a big fan of Napoleon and liked his ideas because it meant that someone like him wouldn't be beneath anybody. He would be equal. But Julian he knows Latin. He's read the Bible back to front. So the mayor of his community, Michel Renal, hires Julian Sorel to be a tutor to his children. Now, his wife, Madame Renal, is not too crazy about this because she feels like there's going to be some old guy who agrees with her husband and takes her children from her. And, but she is surprised when she sees Julian and is immediately intrigued by him because he's a young, handsome, shy young man and very smart. And the kids like him, they enjoy him, he doesn't talk down to him, he is respectful and a good teacher to them. And him and Madame have a bit of an affair. They start hooking up. But Madame is a very pious woman, and she knows this is morally wrong, but she still is attracted to Julian, and he is very sweet to her and very nice to her. He's a nicer guy to her than her husband. He gives her the attention that she craves, but again, she is struggling with her moral compass on the situation, and considers going and focusing more on being part of her church. And eventually they get sold out by one of Michel Renal's friends and rivals, so I should say frenemies. He tells them what's going on with him and his wife, and Monsieur decides to send Julien into the away, and he goes to the seminary in Paris to study there. Finds a mentor there, and he's all set to go, and he becomes part of the Paris society. And he also ends up becoming a secretary to a marquise who is, I can't remember the name, who is very intrigued by him. He likes Julien, but then Julien meets Matilda, his daughter, and they immediately strike up a relationship. She at first doesn't like him, but he is intrigued by her. He finds her very different from Madame Renal, but still very interesting. And they immediately start falling in love. But with them, it's even more frustrating, their relationship, because, but, I will talk about that. I will rant about that in a minute. First, let me finish telling you what, the other thing in the story is that he is trying to get up into, he's still continuing to try to get up in society, and he's using these relationships with these women to help him be part of the aristocracy. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the relationship drama. So, oh my god, the relationship drama in this story just drove me insane. Like, I get that marrying is a way to get up in the world and up in society in this time period, but I wanted the story to be more focused on his time in the seminary. But it was focused so much on his romances with these two women. I mean, first with Madame Renal, it was like, oh, I love you, but it's wrong because I'm a married woman, but I can't help it, I'm drawn to you. And him manipulating her and be like, oh, you don't love me? And constantly them misinterpreting the way each other acts. Thinking, oh, they don't love me anymore. Oh, no, wait, he does love me, or she loves me. And then you have with Matilda, and it's like, she constantly, like, she goes back and forth from giving him the cold shoulder to throwing herself at his feet. She is a woman that doesn't want to be controlled by a man. She's independent, she's strong-willed, but then she's willing to give herself to Julien and be his slave, but then she goes back to thinking, oh, he's trying to manipulate me, and I'm not going to let him boss me around, and I am not going to serve him. He'll just expect me to, be his little woman. And it's like, okay, make up your mind. Either you are aware of his manipulations, or you love him and don't care. It's like, just make a decision, woman. Stop going back and forth with this guy. I don't care how charming or good looking he is. And then, and he is such a hypocrite. He talks about everyone else being a hypocrite. All these rich people, and that they have this agenda and everything, but he is so much of a hypocrite because he has an agenda too. He wants to be part of that group. He does not realize how much of a hypocrite he truly is, because he wants to be part of this group. He hates them and resents them, but he also wants to be one of them, because he knows that's the only way he's going to survive in the world. And it's just, I wanted that to be explored a little bit more, but mostly we got this little love triangle. And it was kind of a different love triangle, because it was like, it wasn't like both women were present at the same time. Like, one of Madame Renal was kind of in the background when he was with Matilda. She was always there lingering, but it's not like she was physically present or anything. He was just, every so often he would think about her or compare Matilda to her. And then towards the last section of the book, I kind of felt bad for Matilda, even though I was frustrated with her and her constantly going back and forth with saying, I love him. Oh no, I hate him. I don't want him to, manipulate me and control me. But, oh no, I love him. I'll be your slave. Like I said, the constant back and forth, was even worse with her. And, but like I said, I started to feel bad for her the situation she finds herself in. And having this complicated, messy relationship with her kind of ruined his partnership with the Marquis. Like, the Marquis liked him, admired him, and respected him, and thought he was cool and everything, but then when he finds out his relationship with Matilda, his daughter, then it's like, oh, no, you did not go there. You did not try to seduce my daughter. You're not on my Christmas list anymore. But, like, I also liked the one of the characters. I feel like I was definitely interested more in the Marquise, and I think Matilda on her own would have been interesting. Like, she had a lot of potential. Like, I would have loved to seen her eventually escaping Julian's manipulations and seduction, just her journey. But we get stuck with Julian. I do like his mentor. I don't remember his mentor's name, but I remember liking him. He was really interesting, and I would love to know more about him. I wish I could remember his name. Like, there was so many other characters that were more interesting. Like, it's funny how that could happen sometimes when someone writes a book, like, with a main character, and then you end up not really loving the main character. I feel like a lot of young adult novels did this, where the main character was kind of boring or annoying or considered annoying or just a blank slate of a character, and you can put yourself in that role. And I understand the meaning of that when it comes to young adult fiction, but in this case, I would, I want the character to be actually interesting. And in the case of the Red and Black, Julian was not interesting. He wasn't a blank slate. He was... I definitely had some feelings about his character, but I would love to explore some of the other characters. So yeah, that was the Red and Black. And then I also read, via audiobook, I listened to T. King Fisher's A House with Good Bones. This is my second T. King Fisher, and I love this. First of all, I mean, it already had my attention because I remember hearing about it in the setting of, I don't know if it was either North Carolina or South Carolina, got my attention, of course. And then family and generational trauma, that also got my attention. So we have our main character, Sam. She's someone who studies bugs. I don't know what the actual, technical term is of what she does, what type of scientist she is. And she's living in Arizona, and she gets a call from her brother that he's been to visit their mom in, I want to say it took place in North Carolina, but it could be, but I don't know. And that something's up with their mom. She's not acting like herself, and he's very concerned. So Sam goes to visit her. Now, her mom is very much a free spirit, and she's not afraid to curse, and she has a great relationship with her daughter. She loves color and everything. But when she gets there, her mom, who is living in her own mother's house, her mother, Sam's grandmother, who died 6 years ago, the house is back to looking like it did when Sam's grandmother lived there. Muted colors, and the racist memorabilia is out. Like, there's this thing with the Confederate wedding painting that her grandma had on the wall. And her mom is acting very weird. Like, she's just, a little more subdued, is always paranoid someone's watching them and listening to their conversations. So, of course, naturally, Sam thinks government, like her mom's scared of the government or something. And you find out the grandmother was not a great person. She, like I said, she was racist. She was a bully. She was very mean to her grandkids. Like, her family ended up moving. Sam's family ended up moving in with her after Sam's dad had died. So the grandma kind of took them in. And she points out that Sam's fat. Like, Sam is a bigger girl, and so she's constantly saying, you're never gonna get a man with your weight and that kind of stuff. She's like, is very abusive and just not a great person. And Sam and her brother remember it very differently, and remember her being mean and cruel to them. But their mom, when Sam brings it up, the mom is like, she didn't do that. You're remembering it wrong. That's not what happened. So Sam gets very worried and thinks her mom might be experiencing early signs of dementia or something. And the only people she could talk to are Phil, the gardener who helps her mom with the house and the heavy lifting, and this woman Gail that's next door that her grandma always told her was a witch. But she ends up realizing that Gail is a very nice, a very friendly, kind person, and she starts, talking to her, and Gail is very much willing to help her mom, willing to help Sam's mom. So this was, like I said, I love stories where there's small southern towns or, small towns, whether it's, in the north or the south, like those are always fun. And they did have the quintessential scene where all the neighbors get together and they're gossiping about, history of their neighborhood and everything. You have at least one scene of that. But the story mostly focuses on Sam and her family, in her relationship with her mom and her grandmother, and how complicated and messy that was. And I'm just waiting for Sam and her mom to have that conversation that would explain everything. I was just anxious for that conversation to happen because I wanted to know what was going on. And I wanted to know if what I suspected was going on was the case. And it wasn't exactly. It definitely was not, it wasn't 100% exactly what I expected. The most dynamic character is probably the grandmother. When we learn about her and get flashbacks of the past and everything, the grandmother was just such a horrible bitch of a person. And I feel like she's memorable, but not necessarily in a likable way or in a good way. Memorable as in she's a very complex and horrible person. And just had such weird behaviors. Like, there's one scene where Sam, when she's little, she loses her tooth. And, the grandmother's like, are you going to put it under your pillow for the tooth fairy? And she's like, no, it's my tooth. I want to keep it. And then Sam's grandma just gets really annoyed about that. She's like, okay, well then give it to me. And and Sam, who's a little girl at the time, is like, no, it's my tooth. I want to keep it. And the grandma's just so insistent to the point of like trying to bully her and grab the girl by the wrist and force her to drop her tooth in her hand. And, Sam's mom is like looking at her like, okay, calm. What's the big deal? It's just a tooth. Let her keep it if she wants to. And she's like, no. And she grabs it, and then she has the nerve to act like, oh no, you're all getting upset for no reason. You're all making a big deal. And it's like, we're making a big deal? Really? You think we're the ones making a big deal about the tooth? And then you do find out the whole reason why she was so like, I want your tooth later on. It's not outright scary, but it is creepy and a little unsettling, and there's a bit of a mystery going on, and just wanting to know, okay, what is the deal with the grandmother? Why was she the way she is? And she's just a mean racist bitch, or is there more going on? And I liked Gail, and I think she probably would have been a better grandmother and mom to Sam and her mom, because she has a lot of wisdom. She's very caring and nurturing, which isn't the way in stories. They always a lot of stories like this, they always set it up where the family, the parent who is really mean, and then they end up meeting someone that helps them deal with their issues, who would have been a better parent / grandparent to them. I feel like they set that up a lot, that dynamic comes up a lot in these kinds of stories. She's also a very sassy and fun character. But Phil was kind of cool, like, although I gotta admit, listening to the narrator's version, voice for Phil, the narrator was good. She was fun. Like, she was able to get individual voices for each of the characters, but I feel like when she did her voice for Phil, I thought he was an old man. But actually, I think he's supposed to be he's a love interest for Sam. So it's like, oh. Which, that's probably not fair to the narrator because, what is she supposed to do? And that's probably sounds mean, criticizing her voice for the male character. I mean, and she's a woman, so women, it's hard for us to alter our voice so we sound like an actual natural guy. Like, we can't do that. I think you would have to do something to our voice box or something to actually make us turn our voice low enough to actually sound like a guy. So I mean, that's probably a silly thing to complain about, and I'm not really complaining. It's just something. I just thought he was older than he probably supposed to be. But it was the part when, first of all, it was cute how they met, where she's staying up late watching TV, and then it's early morning. She's sleeping in the living room, and then Phil is coming in to help around the house. He comes early, and then Sam's like, I got a gun, because she's worried someone's breaking in, and then he's like, wait, don't shoot. I thought that was funny that he, she scares him, literally scares him. And then the other scene I was thinking of was the scene when she's visiting him because she wants to talk to him about her mom, figures out what he knows about what's going on with her mom. And he lives, I don't know, I think it's his dad. He lives with his dad, who's getting up in there and getting older and starting to get senile and everything, which I felt so bad for Sam that one because it's just so awkward. It's kind of funny, but if you were in that situation, yeah, it would be awkward and uncomfortable because how do you respond to someone like his dad because he's kind of cranky and can't hear and everything, and he's like, what do you want? But she's able to get him to tell her where Phil is, and she finds him cleaning the yard. And I don't know if he was wearing a t-shirt or he was gone shirtless, but the first thing she blurts out when he finally notices her standing there is, you're kind of ripped. So I thought that was cute and funny. But yeah, I like Sam. She was a cool narrator. Although I did get asked someone, like, in those novels where I kind of get the impression that there is going to be something supernatural going on, and then you have that one character that's the main character who's like, there has to be a logical explanation or a reasonable logical explanation. I'm like, I'm getting so annoyed and frustrated. Like, no, why don't you just accept it already? Stop trying to find a logical explanation. Accept that there's something supernatural going on that you can't logically explain or reason yourself out of. And I just get so frustrated because I'm like, I know it's going to go in the direction of supernatural. And I'm just so frustrated. Even though there probably are people that would respond like Sam did. And also, why would you want it to be something supernatural? Because as cool as that is made out to be, the idea of an actual ghost or like a vampire or something, or like a zombie or whatever, or there being zombies or whatever, being actually real would be absolutely terrifying. So yeah, so even though I was like, stop trying to come up with a logical explanation, I'm like, I know, deep down there, that probably most people would react like she does. I also kind of like her reaction. There's this photograph, this picture of, I think the person is supposed to be like her great-grandfather or grandfather, that she sees, and the way he looks, she thinks it's Rasputin. So she keeps calling him Rasputin. The supposed sorcerer that the Romanov family wanted to use to help their youngest son when he got sick. But yeah, that was a funny moment. And then so it was a very entertaining story. Like I said, there were some creepy parts, like the image in the photograph and everything of the hand. Her grandmother being obsessed with the tooth and everything, and it just, there was a lot of weird stuff and creepy stuff. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't outright scary, just a little unsettling and creepy. But I would love to see this one adapted. I want to see one of King Kingfisher's books because she has such interesting plots, so very entertaining and very different. Each of them is different from others, from the previous one. Like, now she did just write a sequel for What Moves the Dead, which is the only other T. Kingfisher I've read. I do already looked for. I originally was was the next audiobook I would get from Libby was gonna be Crown of Midnight, but I decided I kind of wanted to read and listen to another T. Kingfisher novel, so I looked to see if there were any other ones on Libby, and there is another one. There's the I think it's Wizard's Guide to Magical Baking or something. So I clicked that, and I'm going to be getting that one soon. I think I have like 4 to 6 weeks for it to come. But, anyway, so it was fun. I enjoyed listening to it. I had a great time, listening to the story and being with these characters. I do like that they had, like, our main character. She wasn't some skinny, mini, willy young woman. She was actually, because her grandmother said she was fat. So she's a thicker girl, and, but it wasn't like by the present time of the story, she actually was kind of moving on from it. She was accepting it and was okay. I mean, she still would roll her eye. Like, there was mentions of, like, she knew when people would look at her and judge her for her weight, but she would kind of roll her eyes, and she had gotten used to it. Like, and it doesn't bother her as much anymore. Like, so I do appreciate that. It was kind of nice to see that in the story. I would love to see this one adapted. And, I'd love to see What Moves the Dead adapt. Although they already kind of did a What Moves the Dead. I don't know if they could do for What Moves the Dead, because they already did a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, which is what Moves the Dead is. It's a retelling of that short story by Poe, but they already did one. They just did it in more modern times. So I don't know if they could ever. I don't know if Hollywood do that. But then Hollywood kind of does stuff that I'm just like rolling my eyes and just accept it. And it's like, of course, typical Hollywood. So they might. But I would like to see this one adapted. Or maybe, when this next one I'm gonna listen to, I'll see that might make a good adaptation too. I will see after I listen to it. So the next novel I read, I decided to go ahead and read Sword Song by Bernard Cornwell, which is, I think it's the book 4 in the Saxon series. Uhtred is still stuck with Alfred, and he's still trying to find ways to defy Alfred and rebel against him, but he's kind of in a good place right now. He's very content. He's happily married to Gisela, who I think was introduced in the 3rd book. And he has, I think he has 3 or 4 children now. But Alfred wants to take over Mercia, the town of London, which I think is London now. And the Danes call out, like, Alfred decides to, call, like, I think Alfred had sent Uhtred to go to his old friends, the Danes, maybe see if he can get his old buddy Ragerson to I can't remember his first name, to join them or something, to be allies. But what ends up happening is when he goes there, he is told that the god Bjorn has risen from the dead and has something to tell Uhtred. And you find out that Bjorn tells him that Uhtred could become king. And he's a little tempted, but he's like, I'm not sure if I would want to do that. But at the same time, he's not sure if he would want to. But you find out that Alfred wants to make Uhtred's cousin, wants to make him, who his cousin, who's kind of an ass. Let's see if it's just that. Aethelred. He wants to make Aethelred the leader of Mercia because, because Aethelred kind of kisses Alfred's ass, and he's kind of a idiot, so Alfred, I guess, thinks he can control him better. And Uhtred, of course, knows that his cousin wanted him to do a good job with it. Oh, and also the other thing is Aethelred is married. Alfred decides to reward Aethelred for whatever he did in the previous book, because I don't remember, with his daughter, who Uhtred has known since she was a little girl. And at first she's all cool with, she's excited about the idea because she's in love with love, and she realizes quickly that Aethelred's kind of an ass. He gets jealous really easily, and he's abusive. He's a jerk. And so Uhtred is, trying to, deal with the fact that his cousin is running things, but he doesn't really want to run things. He just wants to be in charge, but he doesn't want to do it right. So Uhtred tries to do things to make sure everything works out in London and it's taken care of. So, like most people, this is not my favorite. I don't love this book. The first part is kind of slow, which is fine, but Uhtred is definitely not, because he's more content. He's not the snarky badass warrior he's in the previous books. But he's still, he's still snarky and sassy. He's still finding ways to annoy Alfred and defy him a little bit, but it's not as strong because he's in a good place. But oh my god, the part when seeing Alfred's daughter and what she goes through in this story just breaks my heart, and it was so hard to read the way she was treated by Aethelred. I'm probably not saying these names right. I'm pretty sure I'm saying Uhtred right because I've heard, Alan from the Library of Alexandria saying the name of the main character. But yeah, it was very hard to read that part, the way she is treated by, her new husband, and I gotta admit, now I am Methodist Christian, and not that I mind books that talk about and criticize it, or books that point out its flaws, because I am sure, yeah, like every religion, including Christianity, there are going to be some horrible people that are religious zealots and have their own agendas and take it to this extreme level that ends up being more like using God and religion as an excuse to do horrible things to people and to control people. But you got a lot of Christians that are just horrible people. Not all of them. There are still some priests that are actually good, like Father Pyrig, and Uhtred even likes him, and Uhtred's a pagan and is still staying loyal to his pagan beliefs. I liked him. And Father, and Bioka was cool. I liked him. So he was a little hard and stern with Uhtred, and he was a bit of an idiot, I think. But, I should say naive and impressionable. But I still liked him, and there was one other priest character that I actually liked, but most of the priests didn't like and wanted to punch them in the face. And Alfred, I just wanted to shake. I mean, because Alfred just, he's just a good guy, and he just wants to do his job right, and he's discovered God and everything, so he's trying to be a good moral person, and trying to make up for his wild ways back in his younger years. So he's generally just a good guy, but he's also incredibly dumb, and just naive, and a little too trusting, and just, and he doesn't want to get his hands dirty. It's just, and that's what Uhtred, where Uhtred comes in. Uhtred will get his hands dirty. And I think he just wants to keep Uhtred because he knows Uhtred is a badass and good at what he does. And that he kind of needs Uhtred. Like, he doesn't want to let Uhtred go. I mean, every time Uhtred gets close to where he can go back to the Danes, where he belongs, where he wants to be, where he feels most comfortable, where they're on the same side, they agree, they were on the same side, but Alfred keeps pulling him back in, whether it's he himself or someone else. Like, Alfred's daughter, whom I adore her character, she's great, and she goes through a lot of shit in this book, and I hate what she has to go through. But she makes him swear an oath to her father. And naturally, it's understandable because this is her father. But I'm like, oh, why can't you just let him go? Let him go. He doesn't want to be part of your little group. He doesn't have the same beliefs as you guys. So let him go. But nope. He needs Uhtred. Because Uhtred is the powerful warrior and will do the things Alfred is afraid to do. And he knows how to deal with war and everything. There's things that Alfred won't do. His moral compass just gets in the way. And I think in deep down he does like Uhtred. And deep down, like, Uhtred respects Alfred. But and like Aethelred, oh my god, I hate his guts. I mean, I get he is a warrior and everything, and he's a good fighter, but oh my god, I just wanted someone to stab him or something. I just hated him so much. He was such an ass, he's such a pig, and so lazy, and he just wants to take credit for what Uhtred does for Alfred, and Alfred is just oblivious. Like, this guy is just kissing your ass, and you don't realize that he's screwing everything up. Uhtred is the one who's taking care of everything, and he's the only one who's protecting your daughter. And it's like, and he's so arrogant. Like, not like, and Aethelred is so arrogant. You just, like I said, I just want to stab him. I could not stand him. So, there were so many characters in this book that were just so hard to be in their head. So many characters I just hated, downright hated. And then, so the anti-Christian, and then all the anti-Christian sentiment in the book, like, Uhtred saying, you're an idiot, I don't believe, which is fun. It's like, again, Uhtred saying loyal to what he believes in, and it's kind of hard to believe, in our Christian beliefs, and just the way these people are acting and stuff. I understand why he's staying pagan and everything, and staying loyal to his own beliefs. Like, I admire him for that, and not giving in. Because these people are putting a lot of pressure on him to give in and be a Christian and convert. But, so I admire that, but at the same time, as someone who's Christian, it's very hard to read. Like, there are definitely some Christian booktubers that this is not their kind of book. Of course, it's not just that, it's also, some of these booktubers I know are Christian or Catholic. This is not their kind of story. Either way, whether it has anti-Christian sentiments or not. But so, I mean, to be fair, the book, it did give me strong feelings. I don't know if I gave it 2 or 3 stars. I hope I gave it 3 stars, because I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. Out of the other books I read. Now, I don't know which one's my favorite so far between the other 3, but not this one. I'm still gonna keep going with it, although it does feel a little repetitive. Like, Uhtred complaining about Alfred. Alfred and his priests kind of spewing their Christian agendas on Uhtred, and when it's really a waste of time, and there's a war and a battle he has to fight, and he has to claim something for Alfred, and like, it feels very routine and repetitive, and I'm gonna keep going with it. I just want to spread out my reading of the books. Just 1 book per month or something, because I still want to continue, and I want to find out what's gonna happen, especially because we like, as Uhtred's telling us the story, so we know he survives and gets to be an old man and everything, and just, anyway, I just realized I'm probably gonna have to put the fact that I got a little spoilery with this book, but that's kind of hard with series. You know, that's why for some of I'm trying to remind myself to, when it comes to series, don't, do reviews for each book. Just review the whole thing once you finish reading it. But I space out my reading of series so much that I forget that rule and end up talking about it. But, I mean, it's definitely easier when it's just a duology or a trilogy. It will definitely be easier. This series has a lot of books in it. I think like 9 or 10. Maybe even more. And I know a couple years ago the last book finally came out, so. Anyway, that is the Sword Song. So, this last book, again, is a similar situation to how I started the month, where I'm carrying in a book into the next month. And that is, I started reading Robin Hood the other day. And this is the Henry Gilbert version of Robin Hood. So I was mostly familiar with the adaptations. I never read a book version of Robin Hood. The ones I'm most familiar with are the one with, I just was thinking about it. What is his name? I was just watching a video with this actor talking about the guy from Dances with Wolves. Kevin Costner. There's that version, which that's my least favorite version. I mean, I like the other performances in that version, but I didn't like Kevin Costner as the role of Robin Hood. It didn't make any sense to me. He doesn't fit the part to me. I feel like Russell Crowe fits the part more than Kevin Costner does. And they kind of do a similar thing of a more cynical version of Robin Hood. And a more cynical and serious version of Robin Hood. Like after, the Crusades have hardened him and but yeah, it was, and it's not just because he can't do an English accent. It's just because I feel like his personality and his performance does not fit Robin Hood's character. But I did like, so, and then there's the Disney animated version with animals as the characters. So I don't know anyone starring it except for one person. That's the actor who played Little John, who voiced Little John. Because he's been in other Disney movies of the 80s. I cannot think of his name though at the moment. And I really love that one. And that's kind of the one I grew up the most knowing, is that version of Robin Hood. And then there is the Robin Hood Men in Tights, which most of my generation, that is their Robin Hood. Cary Elwes' Robin Hood. So that's how mostly what I knew about Robin Hood is what was in those adaptations. So I decided finally to get the book and read the book. And then maybe I think I could potentially pass this down to my nephew, Harrison, and his brother, Daniel. And maybe, I feel like, Charlie can enjoy it too. Even though it's kind of a boys' book. But that was, so the marketing of this book. And, they assume, the main character's a boy, so it's a boy's book. And it's an adventure story, so only boys would enjoy it. But in case there's a chance you don't know what this is about, I think most people do, because even if they haven't read any of the book versions, because there's kind of two. There's the Howard Pyle one, which Claudia from Spencer's Library talked about, and she said she preferred that one over this one, I think. And then there's this one. So I don't know how similar, because I've never read the Howard Pyle version, because like I said, this is my first time reading Robin Hood. But you've either seen an adaptation, at least, even if you haven't read the book. But I'm going to talk about what it's about anyway. So you have Robin of Locksley. He lost his land. Like, I think he couldn't pay his taxes that Prince John put on everybody. And he loses everything. So he's forced to be an outlaw, live out in the woods. And he finds others like him who are also forced to, they couldn't pay their taxes and they were forced to go on the run, so they become outlaws in Sherwood Forest. And he gets a lot of people to join him. And he finds out that they're all and then he does start to choose people that are either skilled with the sword or are good archers, or they can use the wooden staff. And that's how he meets Little John, actually. And he is fighting all the, Prince John, all the people who work for Prince John, like the Sheriff of Nottingham, the abbots and the knights and the lords of the realm, and he has a lady love named Maid Marian. And it's all about just them going on adventures and helping people. It is very episodic in nature because, each chapter is him going on some kind, either tracking someone down to recruit them because he finds out they have skills that he could use. He wants them to join his band of merry men, or it's about him helping someone. Like, there was one chapter where he's helping this Jewish father and daughter who are on the run because the church is kind of, is punishing the Jews and trying to get rid of them, trying to eradicate them. And they're this father and daughter are forced to go on the run, and one of Robin's men finds them and offers to help them and says his master Robin can give them shelter and maybe help them fight their enemies. And he helps a lot of the good knights that actually care about the people. And of course he has the whole thing of robbing the rich to give to the poor, but he also has a very strong moral compass because he won't kill anyone, and he won't harm women. And, I mean, if he has to kill somebody, because, in self-defense, he will. Now, the characters are, they're mostly similar to, and how he met Little John is similar to how I've seen it in other adaptations. Not in the Disney one. The Disney one, they were already established friends. But in the, in Robin Hood Men in Tights, they kind of make fun of that meeting. Because Robin Hood Men in Tights is a parody, so they're making fun of the Robin Hood story. And I love that scene, I also love, the whole, we're manly men in tights. That whole song number, that was really funny. But anyway, we're not talking about Men in Tights. But I might reference it again later, in a little bit. But, Little John, he, in the adaptations, I got the impression that he was the second in command to Robin and his best friend and everything, and it was them against the world and all that, but actually he doesn't play as big of a role in the book. He does things for Robin, and he kind of does take on a second in command role, but I feel like he's no better than anyone else amongst the merry men. They all kind of share the power equally under Robin, and I feel like there's, no one that's second best to, Robin's partner in crime. I think they all are his partner in crime. And actually, Will Scarlet, in the Kevin Costner film, he plays a big role in the story, and he betrays Robin, and you find out, and I still don't know if this is true or not, but he claims to be Robin's long-lost brother, and Robin believes it. But I think he said he made it up. Yeah, I think he does say when he's captured, he says he made it up, and he betrayed Robin, and it's partly out of pettiness, because Robin is clearly, is very skilled. Because one of the things that they do different in Men in Tights and in the Kevin Costner film is that he shows up after fighting the crusade with King Richard, and he returns for some reason, and before King Richard does, I guess King Richard got captured or something, and he has returned to England and it's Little John who's kind of running things, but in this case, in the original story, I guess it's the other way around, where he's, it's his band of merry men, and he meets Little John. He's Little John. He sees him kicking the butt and humiliating an enemy of theirs, Black Hugo. Which that's another thing. They have a lot more enemies, not just the Sheriff of Nottingham and King and Prince John, who barely makes like one appearance. Like he's mentioned, but you only see him once in the book. Like in the adaptations, he is like known as a big threat and everything. Like, you see him a lot in the but I guess because the adaptations kind of go back and forth between what Robin Hood and his merry men are doing, and then you see what's going on in Prince John's palace and everything, what's going on with Maid Marian. Just another thing, she's not as prominent as I would have thought. Like she plays she's like only in a few, in there a few times. Like she's in the first chapter where Robin helps her after she and her maid or whatever get attacked, I think, and he helps her, and that's where you find out they're a couple and everything. They love each other and all that. And later on, she comes to warn Robin, and she shows up in disguise and comes to warn Robin that Black Hugo and his men are coming. When he meets Friar Tuck, she shows up then to help him. And when she shows up on page, she's very much a help to him. She's not just hiding and stuff and waiting for him to rescue her. I mean, the only time she might run is if she needs to. But yeah, so I'm surprised, but I did like her character. I like that she's not some ninny damsel in distress always in hiding. Like she's capable and she's smart and she's capable to protect herself, and she has some skills. She's a very skilled woman, so I do appreciate that. One of the things I did love is Friar Tuck. He's much more passive and very just a man of the church in the adaptations, but although he does a little something in the Kevin Costner film, when he in the scene with him and the abbot toward the at the end, like towards the big climax, that I like that. I liked that part in the Kevin Costner film. And I like the Kevin Costner film. It's just I just didn't like Kevin Costner as Robin Hood, but he actually is kind of a badass. Yeah, first of all, he has these dogs that he will sick on people whenever they're a threat. He will he has these dogs who will that he'll have the dogs attack people and stuff like that. And also he outsmarts Robin, and at first he kind of Robin hears he has these skills and everything, and he's very smart from other people and very, very tough and everything. So Robin goes to check out the guy to meet him and everything, probably not expecting much, but then Friar Tuck kicks Robin's ass and outsmarts him. So I love that. That was hilarious. Robin just gets annoyed. It's not until Maid Marian shows up and is warns him about Black Hugo and is like, Friar Tuck is my friend and he can help us. And then he's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I could forgive him for humiliating me. He's a little more cool with Little John humiliating him, knocking him into the water, but when it comes to Friar Tuck, his ego was a little bruised because he didn't expect someone like Friar Tuck to kick his ass. And that was just so funny. I mean, I prefer Friar Tuck in the book. But anyway, so but yeah, that's the other thing though. There's a lot more villains in the story than in the movie. Mostly movies adaptations focus on Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham, or the Sheriff of Rottingham, in the adaptation. So I don't know why. No, I know that Guy of Gisborne in the BBC series Robin Hood, Guy of Gisborne plays a role in that one. He's played by Richard Armitage, so he plays a main antagonist in that series. So I was, which I wanted to see that one, but I never got around to watching that show. I wanted to, though. Now, the other thing is, it is a slow going, going story. Like, the chapters they're only 11 chapters, but they're really long and very slow. So, and one of the things that slows them down is the dialogue. I feel like the dialogue is very Shakespearean, with the tis and twere and these and thous and all that when they're talking to people, and it's just kind of hard to read at times. And the other reference to Men in Tights I wanted to make is with the dialogue. They make fun of the dialogue in Men in Tights. There's a scene where Robin and Maid Marian are meeting privately. They're having this intimate moment, and Robin leans in to kiss her, and he hurts himself in a certain place. And turns out she says, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I have a chastity belt." And she tells him, "There is a prophecy that he who is destined for me will have the key to setting free my virginity," or something like that. And he says, "Oh, if only it were me." She says, "If it were you, it would be terrific." I always love that scene. I love reciting that, and obviously I love quoting that scene. And then later, the scene after that part is really funny too. But I mean, the whole movie is funny. If you've never seen Robin and Men in Tights, and you like comedy, parodies, types, takes on classics or something like that, then please check that out. It's hilarious. Like all Mel Brooks's movies are. Blazing Saddles, I have not watched the whole thing, but I'm sure that one's pretty funny too. And but anyway, so that is Robin Hood. I finally read it. Now I would be kind of, if I came across the other one, the Howard Pyle version, I wouldn't mind checking it out just to compare. But then again, maybe I should just look that up on the internet, because would it be worth buying it if it's basically the same story, just maybe a few different things? Like I should look that up and see if there's, the two Robin Hood story versions, the two authors, they have different, like, what's the difference between the two, if there's any really big differences between the two of them. Because, I mean, Claudia from Spinster's Library said, she likes that. I think she liked the Howard Pyle version of this better. But anyway. So that is Robin Hood. So that is my reading. Sorry I cannot show you The Red and the Black, but, the book is, my version of the book isn't really even that pretty, and I just realized the other mistake I made is I took off the dust jacket of that one, and I never put it back on, so they're getting a naked hardback. So I should probably just throw away the dust jacket, because I can't, because someone might, by the time I go back to the roast office, someone might have already bought the book. I could stop by there tomorrow and be like, "Hey, I forgot," but then I would want to buy something. I just went earlier today, so I might just throw it away. It's not the first. I've seen there's been other books I bought at used bookstores that, that are naked, because the dust jacket, and the person probably lost the dust jacket, so I could just say I lost the dust jacket. I don't think anyone, as long as the book is still in good condition. But anyway, so that is my wrap up for March. I would love to know what you read in March. Did you read a lot, or did you read just one book, or just a couple books? Would love to know what you read and what was your favorite book. I don't know what my favorite. I guess In the Country was probably my favorite. Although, I thought I loved Interview with the Vampire too, as well. So, what is yours? I would love to know. Please share in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And click subscribe if you haven't already and you are interested in watching more of my videos. It does really help if you give me a thumbs up, and, and I hope you're enjoying your reading and you're off to a great start for April. And I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.